Yeah, hi. Pramod, can you hear me?
Hi, Vikas. Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. Are you able to turn on your video?
I can, but it says you cannot start your video because the host has stopped it. I think you may have to enable.
Okay, just try now.
Yeah, now it's okay.
Okay, great. And Ashwin is joining in, right?
Yes, I'm not sure if he has the link. Let me just check
Can
with
you
him.
just forward it to him? Yeah.
Hi, Ashwin. I've sent you the. Yeah, he's joining in.
Okay. Yeah, we'll wait for a minute or two.
Sure.
Yeah, I can see some people are writing their questions. So you can write your questions in Q&A box, guys, and we'll take them one by one post the session. Yeah, Mr. Parikh, you seems to have some questions, I believe. So if you have any question, please type in your questions in Q&A box. We'll try and answer that. Okay. Yeah, not in the chat box, but in the Q&A box on your right. Yeah, Ashwin is here. So I'll just promote him as panelist.
Sure.
Yeah, Ashwin, can you hear us?
Yeah, Vikas. I'm not able to switch on my video.
I'm doing it.
Yeah,
I'm doing
okay.
it. Yeah, is it good now? Good to go?
Yes.
Okay. So hello everyone. Firstly, apologies for the delay. We are running 5 minutes late. So I would like to take this opportunity to thank all the participants for joining in today, taking the time out from their busy schedule and coming and joining this live webinar. And I also would like to thank Pramod and Ashwin for accepting our request and coming on the call and talking to our investors. So I think Pramod, you are coming for the first time, while Ashwin, I think we've already had one round of discussion last time, and we got a lot of thank message from our investors. So thank you so much, Pramod and Ashwin, for accepting our request.
No, it's our pleasure to be here. Always a pleasure to work with you and your clients, Vikas.
All right, thank you. So what we're gonna do is, I can see there are a few new attendees who have joined in today. So I'll just take a minute quickly to introduce myself and the speakers, and then take it forward. So my name is Vikas Agrawal. I'm the founder of AIF and PMS Experts India. So at AIF and PMS Experts India, we run this show called Ask the Expert, wherein idea is to invite domain experts and try and read their mind, understand what's happening in and around the world, and if there is any particular topic to be discussed, we discuss in detail. So like this way, we do organize these webinars. So we've taken some break and now we are restarting it. So thank you so much for joining in. With me today, I have Pramod and Ashwin. So Pramod brings about almost 2 decades of experience. He's an engineer and also management graduate from IIM Ahmedabad. And before becoming a part of Marcellus, he used to work for Ambit, spend good amount of time out there, and sort of scaled up their institutional piece per se. And he is also part of the investment team out here. So he's one of the co-founder members, and also looks after the investment idea. So he's part of the investment committee. Well, Ashwin is a chartered accountant and CFA, and Ashwin again brings about more than a decade of experience. He also worked with Ambit in the previous organization. He's part of the investment team, and he would also be looking after this portfolio called Rising Giant, which we want to discuss in detail today. So, gentlemen, welcome you, both of you on the show of Ask the Expert. We'll begin the show here, and what the format of the show is, Pramod. I'll be having few questions to begin with, and then maybe Ashwin can run, or you can run through the presentation if you wish to. You have been given the rights to run, and we'll come to the topic, and then we'll take the Q&A. Hope that is fine with both of you.
Absolutely fine. Works perfectly.
All right. So, Pramod, this Rising Giant PMS, which you have recently launched under the PMS platform. So we've been getting a couple of feedback from investors, and first question is that this product was initially launched under the AIF platform, and then is now available on the PMS platform. So before we come to the topic and understand more, can you just give us idea what was the reason? And there the minimum threshold was 5 crores, and here it is 1 crore for the limited period. So what's your plan?
Right. So look, so we launched it in an AIF format. I'll just step back a little bit and give the context for Rising Giants, the philosophy itself. Ashwin will elaborate on that.
Sure.
As many of you know, we started off with consistent compounders, which is our flagship strategy, which has been running for more than 3 years now. A year after, which is in August 2019, we launched the Little Champs. Right. The difference between CCP and Little Champs was CCP was focused on the BSE 500, and Little Champs was focused on the world below that. Right. And therefore they were quite exclusive. But we did have a pretty good experience in Little Champs, both in terms of demand from investors as well as the performance. Performance has been consistent at 45% per annum for the last 2 years. But the only constraint we saw was there was significant demand to the extent that there was capacity constraints arising in. Remember, the biggest challenge in investing in small cap is liquidity. Many of these companies don't have much of shares trading in the market, and therefore you end up taking unnecessary risk around liquidity. First of all, if you find a good business, you won't be able to buy enough of it because there aren't enough shares available in the market. And second, which is quite possible, right? All of us are capable of making a mistake. If you make a mistake and you want to get out, and if there's no liquidity in the stock, you'll be stuck with a bad investment. And therefore, it is very important while investing in small and mid caps to be cognizant of the capacity constraints of that strategy. And to Ashwin's credit, he's been extremely disciplined from day one. It is easy for us to get tempted and say, look, so many more people want to invest. Why not take more money? It's good for us to increase our assets under management and fees. But at the end of the day, Ashwin's point is that my responsibility is towards the investors. I cannot take more money than I can manage and put their money at risk. And therefore, we shut it at 300 crores. That 300 crores is more than double to 700 crores as their capital appreciation happened. But it left a gap in our product portfolio. A lot of our clients are happy investors in CCP, but their asset allocation is such that they also need to allocate to small and mid cap. Unfortunately, we couldn't provide them with an avenue once we closed Little Champs for fresh investments. Since then, Ashwin and team have been working on finding an alternative universe where we can replicate the positives of the Little Champs, which is in the form of faster earnings growth, lower valuations as compared to CCP, yet doesn't have the liquidity constraints as LCP. And after several months of work, Ashwin and team realized that there indeed exists this segment of companies in between $500 million in market cap to $10 billion in market cap, which demonstrate these characteristics. Clearly, they have better earnings growth prospects and lower valuations than the CCP. At the same time, the liquidity is such that you can easily run a portfolio of 15 stocks with as much as 4,000, 5,000 crores in assets. So therefore, we'll also be able to manage larger sums of money, and more importantly, clients will be able to deploy more amounts of money. Remember, it's not just a one-time investment. You should be able to deploy your incremental savings. As salary professionals, you might be having monthly savings building up, or as businessmen or promoters, you have those dividends and out, and you need to keep deploying that. Once you're comfortable with the strategy should be able to take in more and more money. So this universe solved the twin purpose, and over the last 12 months, they've worked on picking up a bottom-up portfolio as well. I mean, roughly, the universe has about 400 odd stocks, but even after applying our forensic filters and our capital allocation filters, you end up with a reasonably large universe of 50-60 stocks to do bottom-up research and finally build a 15-stock portfolio. Now, what we thought back then was, in fact, there was some demand from some of our investors said, why don't you look at the AIF platform as the preferred strategy for this? And also some feedback in terms of not everybody should be investing in small and mid cap. But how are we supposed to evaluate whether the investor or the investor should be able to take that risk or not? You as a wealth manager, because you have a full view on the client's risk appetite, you do those risk assessments and so on. So we instead chose the easier way by having a high ticket size and saying that the high ticket size will self-select investors who by definition won't have a problem investing in small and mid cap. So that was the launch criteria. We raised about 350 crores. Since then, two things have happened. A lot of partners like yourself have rightly given us the feedback that, look, leave the risk assessment to us, lower the ticket size. There are many more investors who are interested and who are capable of taking on small and mid cap risk. So therefore, the reduction in the ticket size. But the bigger change from AIF to PMS was driven by a regulatory change. So last month, the regulator SEBI issued a circular which put a constraint around us running this strategy in an AIF format. The constraint was, they said that if any stock in the portfolio becomes big enough where it crosses 10% of the portfolio, you will have to sell part of the stock to bring it below 10%. Now, that's not ideal from our perspective, because effectively you end up selling good ones, right? If the stock is gone about 10%, means that it's doing well. And we have seen in our own experience, if you let the winners run, that's where the disproportionate outsized returns come in. So that would have compromised our ability to generate returns. And worse, when you sell such stocks, you obviously incur capital gains tax, you incur brokerage costs, security transaction tax, lots of, so it's not an ideal thing. So that's when we said that, look, we've made a representation to the regulator to reconsider this, but until such time we'll move this to a PMS. The PMS doesn't have any such restriction in terms of having a cap on the stock exposure. So while we are launching the PMS, we said we'll implement the reduction in the minimum ticket size also simultaneously, and hence the launch in a PMS format with 1 crore minimum ticket size. I hope I answered that question.
Yeah, excellent. So at least we got an idea that how the idea got originated, because initially we talked about LCP, but then LCP was available only for selected clients and only for a limited period. So, sorry. So we also used to get this feedback that when is that LCP you are planning to open up? And we had no answer, because obviously Ashwin does not allow any one of us to accommodate money there. So yeah, great. So we understood that. But my limited point, second question is, before we go to Ashwin, is, so, in AIF, you had this liberty of participating in unlisted companies also, if you wish to. I don't know if Marcellus' overall investment philosophy does allow this allow this sort of transaction to take place. Whereas in PMS, you will have the limitation, you may not be able to apply. So how would you tackle that in the PMS format now?
No, so in any case, we don't have any intention to do unlisted investments. It's a slightly different skill. It is not completely non-fungible. It is fungible. Ultimately, here also we are evaluating quality of the business, quality of the promoter, quality of capital allocation. So that doesn't change whether it's listed or unlisted. The only difference is listed is a liquid market, right? We can choose when we buy into the business, at what price we buy into the business. Whereas in unlisted, you are at the mercy of the issuer. It's the company which decides when they want to raise money, and at what valuation they want to raise money. So that sort of requires a slightly different skill. Not to say that it's not learnable or anything. Maybe at some stage we will pick those skills up and we will launch a product which has unlisted investments. But as of now, whether it's AIF or PMS, we have no intention to do unlisted investments.
Okay, got it. Now, so going to Ashwin now. So Ashwin, what are these rising giants? Why is it named as rising giants? What sort of companies qualify under this category of rising giants according to you?
Yeah, so as Pramod said, this product is somewhere positioned between the CCP and the LCP. So the market cap universe that we are looking for in these companies are between $500 million to $10 billion. And as regards the track record of these companies, so they don't have as much as a long track record as, say, a consistent compounder company, but a better track record, a better degree of institutionalization, liquidity compared to small cap portfolio like Little Champs. So in a way, actually, these the company somewhere, both in terms of the evolution of the business model, the level of institutionalization, they are somewhere in between the CCP and the LCPs of the world. Yeah, so I think, yeah, that is.
So any characteristics that you wish to define that these are the criteria that we look at, or you want to run any PPT if you have it?
Yeah, I will. In fact, should I start the presentation?
Yeah, please go ahead. Yeah.
Do 15-20 minutes and then.
Yeah, sure. Please take your time. Just go to share screen and just check if you are able to do so or not.
Yeah, because can you see this?
Yeah, very much visible.
Okay. Yes. Yeah, so I think I'll quickly take through the first two slides. I think this slide is important in a sense. It forms the background for why rising giants will make sense for the investors, because there is a lot of changes which is happening in the last 5-10 years in the Indian economy. One is that both the erstwhile physical infrastructure as well as the virtual infrastructure is improved tremendously in the last 5 to 10 years. So when for example, we didn't have a very good road network, or we didn't have access because the internet penetration was very, very low. There were many companies, small companies, which thrived in a very local environment. Even though those companies were very inefficient, they didn't make the best of the products. But because virtually there was such a huge impediments from an infrastructure perspective, from internet penetration perspective. So as a result, most of the small unorganized businesses 10-15 years tak would thrive kar rahe the. But now that because these barriers have broken, it has made the big organized players to go into every nook and corner of India, basically. So पहले जो silos में thrive करते थे companies, so I think no more, that is no more the case. So hence, I think that is one big catalyst for consolidation, which we have seen in the last 5 to 10 years, and which will continue to play out, in the coming years. And secondly, second point is because of the this GST demonetization, again, the impact on the unorganized players have been very, very significant over the last 5 years. And hence, earlier, because they could evade the taxes and so on, they survived. But I think that is no more the cases. In other words, the objective of this slide to show is that, in sector after sector, we have seen in the last 5 to 10 years, the strongest players are getting all the more stronger. They are gaining market share, and that journey, that process will continue. That will continue in the future, and that will help the market leaders. Whether it is a market leader in a small sector or whether it is a market leader in a large sector, the market leaders and dominant players will continue to become all the more dominant. They will continue to gain all the more market share. And secondly, free cash flow generation. I think Saurabh has been talking about this slide in various. So again, because of the access to technology and because the bargaining power of the companies in various sectors are improving, what we are seeing is that these companies are able to crunch their working capital tremendously. For example, Dr. Lal Path Labs, it manages around 4,000 collection centers around India. But because of the investment in the technology, it is able to have a very predictive business model. It is able to anticipate, what is the kind of inventory requirement in a particular location. Earlier, this was not possible because the technology was not available. But now with the right technology, and because these companies are very open to investing into technology, they are able to predict the requirements very, very sharply. And as a result, the inventory days, for example, of Dr. Lal Path Lab has come down significantly over the last 5 to 6 years. And secondly, because these companies are gaining market share, they are becoming all the more dominant in their sector. So it has also tremendously improved their bargaining power vis-a-vis their customers as well as vis-a-vis their vendors. So as a result, they have been able to extract better, for example, lower credit days from. They are able to extract better credit days from their vendors. At the same time, they have been able to crunch on the credit days that they give to their customers. So that improvement in the bargaining power within the industry ecosystem, that has also helped bring down the working capital. And hence you will see that there has been kind of an acceleration in the free cash flow generation in the last 5 years, FY16 to 21 column. You'll find that particularly for the last three companies, which kind of fits into the rising giant space, there has been an acceleration in the free cash flow generation in the last 5 years, primarily coming from investment in technology, improvement in the bargaining power, improvement in their market share, and has the free cash flow generation has improved tremendously. And also what happened is that, when the company is smaller, any incremental capital allocation decision you take, it has a significant bearing on your free cash flow because you are small. So capex tends to have a disproportionately higher impact on your free cash flow. But as the company size increases, the capex requirement, while these companies are investing, but it doesn't have a disproportionate impact on your free cash flow because your existing business or the base is becoming more and more. And hence the free cash flow generation for companies which are doing well, which are going from small to mid, the free cash flow generation is non-linear for these companies. So I think this clearly benefits the rising giants. And this is a little bit of background about the product. As Pramod said, we launched this product in the IF version first. It's been close to 4 months now. We have raised close to 350 crores. The investment philosophy, Vikas, which you asked, basically it remains the same. So it's not different from what we have in the for the CCP and the LCP. So essentially, we are looking for three attributes in any company. First and foremost, which is very relevant from a small and mid cap space, is that the company should be clean. The management should be clean, because no matter how strong the company is, if the management is dodgy, that the minority shareholders will not make any returns from that company. The promoters will end up enriching themselves. So this has to be, and this is the foremost requirement for the rising giants, any stock to make it to the portfolio. Second is again going back to the previous slide. We are obsessed about market leaders and preferably dominant companies, because we don't want we don't want large, say a small company in a large pool. Rather, we prefer a big company in a small pool. So because more dominant the companies, the higher the ROC of the companies, the higher the pricing power of that companies, and higher the ROC and the difference with the cost of capital of the companies, it means that the company has the ability to generate much higher free cash flows. And a company which has an ability to generate higher free cash flow, it gives it a tremendous source of advantages. The company can either reinvest it back into the business. Either it can take the form of reinvestment into products or capacities or technology or distribution. But the end result is that it gives an enormous ability to the company to gain the market share from its peers. And secondly, a company which has very good cash generation from the core businesses, it also gives that company the ability to develop product adjacencies. जो company core business में ही cash नहीं generate करता है, that company doesn't have the ability or the option to look beyond the core business. But a company which has a very good cash generation in the core businesses, it has an ability to develop product adjacencies or target new markets. For example, grow from one state to national presence. or from even national presence to build a franchise at the global level, because your core business has so much, throws so much of cash. You have the ability to deploy that. And finally, the capital allocation. Again, capital allocation is a double-edged sword actually. So the company which do well in the capital allocation are typically company which reinvest back the cash of the core business into the businesses, or they develop product adjacencies. But there would be cases of some companies who invest the cash of the core business into completely unrelated business. For example, jaha there is no core competency. They will, for example, a chemical company investing that cash into a real estate. The chances is that the company will not be able to make a success of that business, because they don't have competence in the real estate business. At the same time, there would be a set of companies who are very lethargic or complacent, and they don't reinvest back the cash. So case may cash will keep on accumulating on the balance sheet. But the end result is the same, that the blended ROC at the company level for those companies will keep on diluting, because you're not generating the same level of ROC on the incremental capital. So we want companies who kind of tick mark on all the three boxes: clean company, dominant company which generate huge cash flow in their core businesses, and the company third requirement is the company should be smart about generating ROC on the incremental capital also, which is getting generated of the core businesses. So that is the criteria for a stock to make it to the Rising Giants portfolio. But it is nothing different from what we kind of require in CCP LCP. The difference come in the market cap range perspective. So here we are looking at $500 to $10 billion market cap. And before I go to the portfolio construction process, it was not just that because we didn't have a product in CCP and LCP that we just kind of went about and kind of launched the Rising Giants. There was a fair bit of homework also done, whether investing in this space makes sense from a risk reward perspective. So what we did is, for the return perspective, we the top two, both the charts on the top half, they talk from a return perspective. What we found very interestingly is that the top quartile mid caps, and just a qualifier, the mid cap for the purpose of this, or the mid-size company for the purpose of this slide, is we are referring to $500 to $10 billion. It is not a SEBI defined mid cap. Okay. So top 25% mid caps, they generate much higher return than the top 25% large cap. And very interestingly, this is across different time periods, whether it is 3-year period, 5-year period, or 10-year period. You'll find that the dark blue bar on the top left-hand side chart, they are invariably higher than the gray bar. And very interestingly, CY 18 to calendar year 18 to 20, where calendar year 18 and 19, clearly, small and mid caps were not investors were not favoring small and mid cap space. Even in that block of 3 year, you'll find that the top best quality mid caps, they delivered slightly outperformance versus the large cap. And even at the absolute level, you'll find that the annualized return across different time period, that is at least 50%. Across, even in the challenging period of CY 18 to 20, you'll find that the annualized return of the top 25% mid caps, they were touching 50%. And more importantly, even at the fundamentals level, the top quality mid caps, they deliver they have a much better fundamental performance than the top quality large caps. So you can see on the top right hand side chart. Again, even in a very challenging corporate economic environment of FY 18 to 20, you'll find that the annualized EPS growth in the top 25% mid cap, that is very close to 50%. So this at the broader market level gave us good validation that if we are able to identify, invest in good quality mid caps, there is a kind of a healthy return that we can make for our investors. Now we also look at from a risk perspective. Suppose unfortunately we end up investing in, say, poor quality mid caps. So scenario kya hai? And here we found the bottom two charts, they depict that scenario. So if you end up investing in, say, bottom 25% mid caps, so the top two charts were top 25% mid caps. Here it is bottom 25% mid cap. The wealth destruction is not, or the decline in the share price and earnings is not as severe as what happens in the small cap space. So small cap space during the period of market dislocations, there is a pure carnage. The share price goes down by 60-70%, what happened in the first wave of COVID. But in case of mid caps, it's like something like 25%, 30%. Even in the worst of the time, the drawdown is somewhere between 25 to 30%. In other words, आपका capital इतना erode नहीं होता है in the case of mid caps. Similarly, in the case of earnings, the bottom 25% mid caps, their earnings decline in weak macro period is, on the median level at the overall level is something like, 20, 25%. Whereas in the case of small caps, actually the profitable companies even turn loss, and hence that, you can see that it's even lower than 100%, minus 100%, because profitable companies actually tend to generate loss in weak macro periods. But because mid caps balance sheet is sorted, they don't have much debt, they don't have very high interest cost in the P&L, and hence the decline in the top line, they don't have disproportionate decline in the earnings level. And hence, so this slide actually gave us a kind of a go ahead that, from a risk reward perspective, this is one of the sweet spot, or this is one of the best place to be in the Indian equities. Now, having satisfied about the merit of investing in this space, so our investment process is, I'll just not spend much time over here, but broadly, there are two parts to our investment process. So Pramod talked about, there are 450 companies in this market cap universe. Now, how we go about finding the 15 odd stocks out of this 450 is through a combination of quant screens and our bottom-up research. So there are a couple of quant screens that we employ across all our products. The first is forensic screen. So this is nothing but a set of 12 accounting ratios which we use to rank the companies to determine their accounting quality. For example, one of the ratio which we use is how much of the operating profit is getting converted into operating cash. Higher the ratio, the more the conviction that the company's numbers are okay. But if say operating cash is only 20-30% of your reported operating profit over the last 6 years, it means that there is some problem. You're inflated, most likely than not, your operating revenues and operating profits. So our model punishes those companies. So we have such other 11 ratios, total 12 ratios. We rank all these 450 companies individually across these 12 ratios, then aggregate the score across the 12 ratios. And finally, based on the decile-based ranking, we eliminate the bottom 40% because our model is raising question about the quality of the reported numbers. So 40% companies get eliminated at the forensic accounting screen. The next step on these 200-250 companies which are left is to find companies which are growing, but which are growing sustainably. Means they are growing by not putting their balance sheet at risk, but they are growing by generating cash and redeploying that cash. To find such companies, we use again 6-year period and rank these 200-250 companies on 4 parameters. What is the growth in revenue over the last 6 years? What is the improvement in operating margin over the last 6 years? What is the improvement in working capital days? And finally, what is the improvement in the fixed assets turnover over the last 6 years? And we select companies which are in top 50% on each of these 4 ratios. Suppose a company scores very high on revenue growth, but the working capital days of that company has increased significantly in the last 6 years. That company by default will get a very low score on the working capital parameter, typically less than 50%, and hence that company will not get selected. So you want companies which are growing sensibly, which are growing by not putting their balance sheet at risk or not taking out too much debt on their balance sheet. So you will be surprised to know that only out of these 200-250 companies, only 35 companies make the cut. And these 35-40 companies form the basis for our bottom-up research. And that is where, so abhi tak jo bhi tha, wo Excels mein tha, basically Excel, macro driven, forensic and capital allocation. And this is where the real work actually starts. We start putting our time, efforts, and typically our bottom-up research consists of 2 parts. One is reading the annual reports for the last 15, 20 years. And this is very important. You must go back as much possible in the history of the company, because if you look at only 2 to 3 years, it may not give you a complete picture. 15, 20 years ka aap padhoge, to you will be able to picture the evolution of the company. You'll be able to identify what were the crisis point in the past. How did the promoters or the management dealt with that? That will give you a proper assessment of the mental character of the promoters and the management. And more importantly, we do a lot of primary data research, typically speaking to people in the industry ecosystems like competitors, vendors, ex-employees. Management se to baat karte hi hai, but management will be incentivized to say positive things about the company. So you should always corroborate that with speaking to the people who can give you an independent view. And this is a very time consuming process, especially in small and mid caps, because these companies are not generally well known. They are well known with their customers, vendors, but generally public में इतना awareness नहीं होता है. But it takes typically 6 months to a year to uh, get to meet at least 10 people who will know about the company. But that is the worth the time we think, putting, and that gives us a lot of insights. And finally, having done all these annual report readings and primary data meetings for these 35-40 companies, we have a longevity framework. So I'll not go into depth over there, but we have a longevity framework where we screen हर 35-40 companies को longevity framework में scoring करते हैं, and the best 15 companies, they make the cut to the live or the actual portfolio. And not only the best 15 companies, that longevity framework is used to determine the stocks which will make it to the portfolio, but the inter-se position sizing of these companies is also determined by the longevity framework. So the best stocks, the company which scores the best, it will have the highest allocation in the portfolio. And this is how the portfolio has been constructed. So we have currently 15 stocks in the portfolio. The name of some of the companies have been disclosed here. And I'll talk about three rows here, which very important. One is the EPS growth. If you look at the third column, EPS CAGR over FY16 to 21, you will find that barring a couple of exceptions, most of the companies would be having very healthy double-digit growth. And because most of you have been following the Indian markets, you'll find that 16 to 21 has been one of the most challenging periods from a macro, from a corporate earnings perspective. We had the demonetization, we had the GST, we had even before the COVID, there was a slowdown hitting home. And finally, the pandemic impact in FY20. In a period which has been inundated with various challenges, these companies have been able to deliver very healthy earnings growth. And that has come primarily because of two reasons. One is because these companies have gained market share from their weaker peers in their sectors, because of investment in technology, or because of expanding the distribution network. Or secondly, they have made very well use of their capital to develop new growth drivers. Either they have developed new products or they have expanded their markets. But the end result is that these companies have kind of de-linked them from the destiny of the macros and kind of taken upon themselves to deliver the earnings growth. And hence the end result, you'll find that at the portfolio level for the last 5 years, the 21% EPS growth. And if you look at the FCF column, which is the second last column, you'll find that the things look even better in that column because of the things which I talked about at the beginning. These companies have been able to crush their working capital days significantly. And this is free cash flow CAGR is not because they have cut down on their capex spend. In fact, most of these companies have accelerated their capex spend in the last 1.5 years, because clearly the weaker companies are falling by the side, and these companies have pressing the accelerator. But this free cash flow CAGR has come because of the crunch in the working capital days. And finally, as we speak, the last column, most of these companies, you'll find that the figures for the net debt equity is in brackets, which means that most of these companies have surplus cash on their balance sheet. And this is very important because you'll find that sector after sector, most of the companies, because of the last 5 years ka jo issues hai, the balance sheet is really got out of the shape for most of the companies. But whereas these companies have surplus cash on their balance sheet, they really, this gives them enormous firepower to consolidate market share, either by weaker players inorganically or actually even press the growth organically. So the strong balance sheet places them in a very advantageous position. I think this is basically the stock-wise attribution analysis since we launched it in the AIF format. You'll find that most of these are cumulative returns. So you'll find that in the last column, which is cumulative returns till 30th November, you find that most of the stocks have been in the positive zone, which indicates that the stock selection has worked so far. And just to give you one case study, I will not go into a couple of, just to give you one case study, GMM Folder, for example, why it makes to a portfolio is that 2 to 3 things. One is on the moat side, this company is very strong. So GMM Folder has been a market leader, and not only market leader, but a dominant market leader with more than 50% market share in the glass-lined equipment, pretty much since the inception of the company over the last 3 decades. And that market share leadership has come from 2 things. One is the technological edge. So its parent Pfaudler has been in the glass-lined equipment industry globally for the last 100 years. So there has been a lot of body of work, behind Pfaudler, 100 of years of experience, knowledge, which clearly GMM in India has benefited from the technology sharing from the parent. And secondly, glass-lined equipment is a very critical product. Whilst it makes for only 5% of the overall capex of the company, but इस product में अगर suppose in a glass-lined equipment, even if there is small crack, actually you can't use that reactor. You have to basically bring down that reactor and get it replaced. In other words, basically your supply or your production processes has to be stalled for at least 2 to 3 weeks. So there is an enormous loss of production if basically you end up buying a faulty glass-lined equipment. And hence, even if a competitor is offering 10% cheaper or 20% cheaper glass-lined equipment compared to a GMM Pfaudler, because there is so much risk around quality, reliability involved, it doesn't, the customer is not inclined to buy a cheaper product. So I think that is also very important. And finally, GMM, even though it has been a market leader for the last 3 decades, it didn't stop, it didn't make the company complacent. It has always tried to remain ahead of the curve. So just to give you 2 examples, one is within the core business, it has even strengthened its position in the last 1.5 years. So what it did was it bought the third largest player called DDPS India last year. And DDPS is actually an MNC and a globally good company, but in India it never made profits for the 15 years of its existence, and hence it kind of exited the Indian market. And GMM bought DDPS, and by buying DDPS, it got an entry into the southern Indian pharma market. So GMM was always strong in the West India, but it didn't have a manufacturing presence in South India, whereas DDPS is a Hyderabad-based company. And now GMM has bought it, got an entry to the southern Indian market. And secondly, and more importantly, it bought its parent Pfaudler last year. So there is a very, kind of a very rare instance of any subsidiary company buying a global parent. Parent to buy nahi karte hai, and we are talking about here global parent. So GMM actually bought its global parent Pfaudler last year. And now the technology for the company is also secure, because Pfaudler used to be owned by private equity for the last 30 years. And private equity में एक issue होता है कि every 5-6 years there is a change in the ownership. So there was always uncertainty surrounding the technology sharing with GMM Pfaudler. Suppose say a Chinese company buys Pfaudler, whether the parent will be willing to share a technology with GMM Pfaudler in India. But now that GMM has bought its parent, that technology overhang has actually gone away from the stock. So I think I will stop here and happy to take Q&A questions.
Yeah, thank you, Ashwin. I think it was a great presentation. You can turn off this PPT so that we can take more questions. So we'll start the Q&A session now. So dear participants, if you have any questions, please type in your questions in Q&A box, not in the chat box. I'll take some of them. So first question is for Pramod. There's a gentleman, he's already signed up for CCP, but a bit confused whether to go ahead with CCP or Rising Giant. So I think this needs to be clarified to him. And a lot of clients are also asking me this question, and they are not understanding that the core portfolio is core portfolio. So if you could just share your thoughts on that.
Sure. So yeah, I mean, like you put it, it's ultimately the investor's call, because it depends on the individual situation, individual appetite for risk, individual need for returns. It all depends on our individual circumstances and also what already exists in your portfolio, right? So your risk return requirement is an input into your asset allocation. Your asset allocation then tells you how much of exposure you need to large cap, small cap, mid cap, Bitcoin, whatnot. And then, Vikas's job is to suggest the best possible products to fill in that. What I can help with is how do various Marcellus products stack up in terms of risk and return, right? Ultimately, a fund is nothing but a combination of a certain unit of return for a certain risk that you're taking, right? That's what is delivering. So CCP, as we've always argued, and it says in the name itself, it's by definition consistent compounding. In a year like March 2020, when the market fell 25%, CCP was up 8%, right? In a year like the last 12 months, when the market has gone crazy, CCP is slightly less than the market, but still healthy. But that's what it is meant to do. The whole idea is to keep returns less volatile. The reason volatility is very important is, although we might tell ourselves that, look, I'm a long-term investor, I don't mind taking short-term risk. None of us in reality want to see or like to see a 20% drawdown in our portfolio, right? It gives us the jitters. And it's not our fault. It's just the way, God and nature has created human beings. In fact, Daniel Kahneman won the Nobel Prize was for talking about how human beings are driven of loss aversion. Right. So effectively, he says the amount of grief you get by losing 10 rupees is significantly greater than the joy you get from finding 10 rupees. Right. So that's how we are wired. So it is very important to understand our innate behavior and then construct a investment philosophy around it, which is why what we saw is when the market fell 30% in those 3 months of Jan, Feb, March 2020, and our fund fell only 12.9%, we saw almost no redemptions. But market-wide, there are several people who exited the market at the bottom of the market. By exiting, what did they do? First, they crystallized what was paper loss into a real loss. And second, they sort of deprived themselves of an opportunity to play the recovery, which is played out pretty handsomely. That you can do only if you can hold your wits together, and those wits can be in your control if your volatility is low. So consistent compounders was designed to be, which is why I guess because it's alluding to the fact that CCP should be the core part of your portfolio. All your must achieve financial goals should be driven off CCP, because that gives you comfortable, consistent compounding over long periods of time. Once you've covered all your basic financial goals, which are must achieve, then you are feeling comfortable that now I can afford to take a little bit of risk in pursuit of better returns. Then you start looking at the satellite products, or what's called in the industry. You can look at a mid-cap fund, a small-cap fund, and so on. So the way our funds stack up is CCP is at the lowest end of the risk spectrum, reasonably healthy returns. It's compounded at 27% in the last 3 years. But I would say from an expectation perspective, you should factor in 20% going forward. So 20% return with very little risk. One step above is Kings of Capital and Rising Giants, where we find the returns can be closer to 25%. Again, the caveat that these are just expectations. Our expectations of the underlying portfolio companies' free cash flow growth is around 25%. And we've shown in our research that if you hold on to a company whose free cash flow growth is 25% for 3 years or beyond, your returns are more or less likely to be around that 25% mark. Right. So you go up from 20 to 25% in these two, but the risk is slightly higher. Risk defined as volatility. As we've seen in Kings of Capital, despite the market recovering, financial services haven't recovered yet. That's because financial services are perceived to be very closely linked to the economic fortunes. Now, with the coming in of COVID wave 3, again, there are concerns around lockdowns being enforced, and therefore financial services will see an increase in NPAs. That's the apprehension, although on the ground we haven't seen any of such thing in our portfolio companies. But by definition, KCP will be more volatile, mid-cap, because of the liquidity issue, and also the fact that mid-cap companies tend to be more narrower in terms of business approach, right? They either have a single line of business or exposure to a large client. So for the fortunes of that business or the client has a disproportionate bearing, whereas consistent compounders are large and diversified. Therefore, volatility in one part of the business will be made up by other parts of the business. The higher end is the little champs. Little champs adds another liquidity risk to it, because the stocks, our own buying and selling of the stocks makes the price go up and down, right? That's the sort of liquidity issues in little champs. And therefore, in exchange for that higher liquidity, we demand higher returns. It's delivered 45% in the last 2 years, but I don't think that's repeatable. Even if it delivers 25-30%, we'll be more than happy. So that's the risk return spectrum. Now, you should ask yourself, what do I expect out of my investments? There are some of our clients who say that, look, boss, I am happy with 15% return. My intention is to sleep peacefully at night. For them, we say put 100% in consistent compounders. Don't even think of rising giants. Don't even think of little champs. But your situation could be different. And also your existing portfolio. Okay, I already have a lot of exposure to consistent compounders. Let me put some incremental money in rising giants. Or you can say, no, all other PMSs that I have are all small and mid-cap PMS. In that case, a consistent compounder might suit you better. But to give the overall picture, no better person than Vikas himself, because he can take a market-wide view. He can take your inputs in terms of your specific financial goals and create an asset allocation and construct the right split between CCP and Rising Giants.
Yeah, so if in case any one of you want your risk appetite to be checked, then you can reach out to our expert team and they would help you. And we kind of go very methodically in terms of generating the score, etc. So we'll give you complete picture and you can decide on that. But I remember one analogy given by Saurabh last time when he was there in our show. He said your CCP is like a dal chawal. You must have it. Without that, you cannot think about having paneer. So paneer is like your KCP. Okay, you like dal chawal, but you want some more taste. But if you're looking out for Rasgulla and ice creams, then LCP or Rising Giant would come into picture. But that's where you know that it will have a sugar. So if you are you have sugar, then you must avoid. So if your risk appetite do not allow you, then please do not think about Rising Giants or LCP. But if you what Pramod rightly said, that if you already have good amount of exposure in CCP and you have additional cash flow coming in and you wish to deploy further, then the first choice should be Rising Giant. That's how I would look at. That's my take. So second question is, so there is one gentleman is asking that why is it minimum threshold is 1 crore in Rising Giant vis-a-vis other PMSs?
Right. So as you know, like I said, we've launched Rising Giants in an AIF. And for reasons that I articulated for the regulatory changes, we are doing it in a PMS. But having raised some money in AIF, we want to keep the terms similar for both AIF and PMS. And as you know, in AIF, the regulatory minimum is 1 crore. We can't go below 1 crore. And therefore, in this PMS, we've kept the minimum of 1 crore. The idea is to be fair to all investors, whether you come in the AIF or PMS.
The next question is, why is it that so tightly set the date of 31st of December? Why not till about 31st of March, so that capital gain and capital losses can be adjusted with each other and the fresh call can be taken?
Yeah, so again, because of the AIF history here, the AIF, as you know, can only be, money can be taken on the month-end valuation date. Right, AIFs are peculiar. Although it's an open-ended AIF, we can't keep it perennially open. We can at best open it in bouts, which is the intention now as well. So as you know, AIF we opened last in September. Now in December, most likely we'll open it in March. For PMS investors also, we'll follow the same schedule. We'll have to close it on the date of the AIF closing on 30th December. The next round, more or less likely, we might do it in March. We might get opportunistic if there is a sharp fall in the market, which allows us to participate in good companies at lower prices. We might come in sooner than that. But roughly, if for some reason you're not able to meet the 30th December deadline, you'll definitely get another opportunity in the next couple of months.
All right, that's a good news for you guys. If you wish to participate later also, you can come in. They might open up depending upon how the market behaves, and during the regular interval we keep coming up. But so in nutshell, Pramod, would that be that PMS is just a platform which is being used, but overall you want to run this like a AIF mindset? Your mindset will be like an AIF and you will be running it like that. Is that what you're trying to say as far as Rising Giant is concerned?
Yeah, I mean, yes and no. Ultimately, we want to run the best possible strategy in that market cap spectrum, right? Now, because of this history of having started with an AIF, there are certain constraints imposed by the AIF regulation, which, like I said, our intention is to be fair to all investors, and therefore we're sort of self-imposing those constraints upon us in the PMS as well. But those constraints will not impinge on returns, right? The constraint that impinged on returns, we immediately addressed by moving from the AIF to PMS. We want that flexibility where we want to let good companies compound as strongly as possible. So what if it crosses 10%? We don't want to pair our position there. That we've taken note of, but otherwise all the other terms are similar to the AIF.
Yeah, next question is for Ashwin. So how good will be the FCF compounding in Rising Giants going ahead?
So as I showed in one of the slides, so for the past 5 years, the FCF compounding for the portfolio has been, as a weighted average, has been close to 25%. And we don't see any reason why that shouldn't be the case even for the next 3 to 5 years. In fact, because of whatever has happened in the last 1.5 years, we think that both the EPS growth and has the FCF growth should be better, over the next 3 to 5 years. And if on the top of that, there is also an economic recovery, that will be kind of an icing on the cake. But at the base case level, we are pretty confident that, whatever has been on the last 5 years, that should be for the next 3 to 5 years.
Okay. The next question is, somebody is asking, I'm already invested in CCP, KCP, LCP, what next? So I would suggest you to look at your overall allocation and discuss with our team, and we will tell you. Of course, you should be considering this as well, provided you have liquidity. The next question is from Mr. Lele. He's asking that, is there any avenue for NRI investment with returns repatriable? So in case of repatriable, I would like to answer that. So here you'll have to set up the account in NR1 category and not in the NRE category. And then it is something that you can decide. If you wish your money to stay back in India, if you want to look at repatriable, then you'll have to look at NRI. So that's how it is. How is LTTS better than a Tata Elxsi? So we're not taking individual stock questions because of the fact that regulatory does not allow ABs. There's a disclaimer from my end that even if you're discussing about any particular stock, my submission to all of you is, please do not go ahead and invest. Please discuss with your investment advisor or discuss with our team before you make any investments. Is the Rising Giant PMS and LCP has a specific exit date, or it is good for holding for both ever, like it can enter in my will for passing on inheritance to my children? Would you like to answer that, Ashwin?
No, so we like to the investors to invest as long as possible, actually.
Yeah.
And we think these companies, they will continue to do well over a long period of time. So if you have the wherewithal, if there is no liquidity constraint on your part, ideally money should stay invested forever.
Yeah, so I would say that, see, there is no specific dates as far as LCP or Rising Giant is concerned, because it is individual stocks view, which fund manager would be taking call eventually. So there is no specific exit date as such. Here in Rising Giant, you have a 15 months of exit load, and thereafter you can take out your money any point of time. However, if you're talking about the horizon, then you should have as long as you can hold. The longer you hold, the better the power of compounding will play out. So it truly depends on your horizon and your goal, I would say. You can discuss this with us and we can let you know in future. How do you define or select high quality mid caps? Means which are the metrics you apply for filter high quality mid caps? Ashwin, would you like to answer this in a brief note?
Yeah, I think three things basically. So one is that the company the promoters, the management should be integrity strong hona chahiye basically. So I think that is the first one. Chor nahi hona chahiye basically, the promoter. Second is look for the companies which generate healthy ROC, and they are able to sustain that ROC. So the capital allocation filters, if you remember the second on screen which we use, ki healthy ROC hona chahiye, and secondly it should be able to sustain over the last 5 to 6 years. By combining these two things, clean companies, healthy and sustainable ROC, by itself you are actually arriving at a very small pool of very good quality mid caps. On the top of that, if you do more work, last 15-20 years ka annual report padho, and if you are able to figure out that the company, the management is always agile, it always try to stay ahead, top of the game, I think that is kind of the final nail in the.
Okay, next question is for Pramod. So 1 crore in PMS is okay, but can we bring that investment in 6 months of tranches?
No, unfortunately not. We'll need 1 crore at the outset. On top of that, if you want to keep adding that, you are free to do either on an ad hoc basis whenever liquidity is available, or if you want to start an SIP, that's also possible. If you're worried about timing, we are offering the STP route also here, where although you give us the 1 crore on day one, we'll only invest 20 lakhs in Rising Giants on day one. The remaining 80 lakhs is put in a liquid fund, so that every month on a prefix date, we redeem 20 lakhs and put it. That's to take care of your timing, but we can't take less than 1 crore to start with.
Yeah, the next question is, I already have PMS and invested in CCP. Do you advise to go for AIF, as I intend to add another 50 lakhs? Pramod.
Yeah, I mean, look, like I said, if we only have the Rising Giants in an AIF format. Given that you already are invested in PMS, I presume there are no such restrictions for you to invest in a PMS, because PMS means that the stocks will be in your name. And like I said, the constraint is now on the AIF, because you are not able to hold more than 10% in a single stock. Then I would recommend the PMS. If for some reason you are not allowed to invest in a PMS, either because your employer doesn't allow investing directly in stocks, where AIF is the only option, then by all means you should consider AIF.
Yeah, and the other thing is, because you are adding only 50 lakhs, then I would suggest you to look at the other PMSs, because here the minimum threshold which is meant for your Rising Giant is 1 crore. Yeah, and so next question is for Ashwin again. How do you evaluate management? Very briefly, if you could answer, Ashwin, although you've already covered up in your presentation, but anything that you want to add?
I think first, again, governance, look at the governance of the management. Look at their actions in the past. Have they been minority friendly, or are they been adverse to minority? I think that is the first requirement. Second is within the clean promoters, find the capable promoters. So again, look at their actions, because one thing is big issue in the small and mid cap is that the promoters tend to get complacent. They are clean promoters. They tend to get complacent. Look for the signs of complacency. Look for, is there any reinvestment ratio of the company continues to remain high? Are they being cognizant of the disruption that is likely to happen? Are they writing it off, etc.? Looks for the signs of complacency, I would say.
All right, so we've taken good amount of questions. What we'll do is we'll try and we'll conclude this session now here, and all the questions that you posted, I'll see to it that all of them gets answered. I'll talk to you one-on-one, and I'll try and answer some of them. In case you wish to speak to any of the portfolio manager, we'll set up your call and get onto the call and discuss that with you. So thank you so much, Pramod and Ashwin, for taking the time out, gentlemen. It was a great presentation and great interaction. Thank you so much for answering all the questions so patiently. Appreciate.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Vikas. Thanks everybody for attending.
Thank you. Thanks everyone for attending the session. Please feel free to reach out to me. My email ID is vikas@aifpms.com, or you can call me at 9881156123. I'll see to it that I'll try and answer a question. So one question which is coming up again and again, Ashwin, can I have the liberty of taking your 5-10 minutes quickly?
Yeah, I think I can stay back for 2 minutes more.
2 minutes. Okay, quickly. So some people are asking, what's your views on the markets?
So honestly speaking, we don't look at markets. So I show you the slide, no? FY 16 to 20 earnings growth. I think so we don't look at the broader market. It's more to do with the company specific. I think irrespective of the the market or the macro scenario, good companies will find their way to grow. They will find their way to grow, and again, I think it doesn't make sense to look for a market from 3 to 6 months perspective. If you are in equity, and especially in small and mid cap space, if you are investing, I think next 3 months या 6 महीने में क्या होने वाला है, I think we should stay away from predicting the next 3 to 6 months.
Yeah, so I just want to add one thing. So at Marcellus, they do not look at markets at all. Correct, Ashwin? They only look at companies where they invest money, and they look at and track, how these companies are growing, because eventually your stock appreciation mirrors the corporate earnings in the long run, and you make as much money in the stock market as company makes. So even our suggestion to people is, don't look at the index levels, because that's a misrepresentation of selected stocks and getting average out. My suggestion is to look at each and every company before you invest. or give it to the portfolio manager and allow them to manage the way they wish to manage. So thank you so much, Ashwin. It was great interacting with you. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you, everybody. Bye.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. See you in next session. Thank you.